Good evening, it is 7 o'clock, and I will call this meeting of the Richland County Board to order. I will ask the clerk to take the roll, please.
Carroll.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Brewer.
Here.
Kramer.
Here.
McKee.
Here.
Hendricks.
Here.
Manny.
Here.
Gill.
Here.
Glassburner.
Here.
Hardwick.
Here.
Woodhouse.
Here.
Turk.
Here.
Cosgrove.
Here.
Frank.
Here.
Severson. Williamson.
Here.
Cooley.
Here.
Fleming.
Here.
Brookins.
Here.
And McGuire.
Here.
You have 19 to 21 present.
Very good. Present for our invocation tonight is Pastor Tim Ward of the Richland Center Free Methodist Church. Stand, please.
Heavenly Father, as we pause for just a minute or two before we begin this meeting, I thank you for your wisdom and your mind and your heart. Father, in a day that, in a time that oftentimes is filled with rancor and anger and vitriol, I pray, Father, that you would give us the mind of Christ. Help us to be like him in all that we do and say. In all the decisions we make, Father, we pray that you would glorify yourself in us in Jesus' name. Amen.
The clerk will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That must be a call. Five, are we in compliance with the open meetings law?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we're in compliance.
We did have an occurrence with the agenda was posted last Friday down on the bulletin board. We noticed this morning it was removed. Don't know who did it, don't know when, but it was reposted again. It has been circulated to all the media outlets. It was posted at the County Highway Department. It's on our website, on WRCO's website, so it got circulated. We're not sure, again, who or when that occurred, but we're going to put in a case that has glass that locks, so that won't happen again. That brings us to approval of the agenda. A couple of notes on the agenda before we approve it. Public comment was inadvertently left off. We will be doing public comment tonight, so just so you're aware of that. And item number 25 we will be striking from the agenda for tonight. We'll pick that up again next month. So with those two notes, do I have a motion to approve our agenda? Motion by Mr. Brewer, second by Supervisor Kramer. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, our agenda is approved. We do have minutes from two different meetings, the September 17th and 24th meetings of the county board that were circulated. Anybody have questions, corrections, or issues with those two sets of minutes? Hearing no comments, I'll declare those minutes to be approved. And at this point, we will pause for public comment. Does any member of the public wish to address the board tonight? Anyone here in the room? Anyone online? All right, hearing none. We will move into the next item on the agenda, which is our public hearing on the proposed 2025 county budget. We'll open this public hearing with a short budget presentation.
Okay, so this budget presentation is exactly what you have seen before. There have been very, very small tweaks to this presentation based on the guidance that the board gave me in the last review. So to go over that again, you will see that our budget highlights, there's an increase in our investment income of $150,000. We are utilizing no general fund balance, no contingency fund, nor any ARPA funds to balance this budget. This does include a 5% wage pool, and what that means, to clarify, is we took the total of our wage budget and we added 5% to that. That total is what we now are going to utilize to ensure that we can implement the wage study that we are in the process of completing right now. And so we have the dollars already set aside to do that and ensure that that implementation happens. So that was done through this budget process as well. You'll see that there was a reduction in short-term borrowing for our capital improvement projects by $408,800. And this year, short-term borrowing will be done with a local bank. This is for the first time we're doing this. It is a much shorter process, much less labor intensive, and it saves us approximately $20,000 in bonding fees. So all outstanding points to make in this budget.
And it keeps the money in the community.
And it keeps the money in the community. We're patronizing local business, so it's a win there too. The proposed budget revenues. So you can see here we have listed out each area and how much revenue is anticipated for that line item, with a total of $42,572,645 in proposed budget revenues. On the next slide, we talk about what those revenue types are. So we have county sales tax, we have interest on taxes, we have MFL and forest crop, tax levy. That's the funding gap between the revenues that the county has and the expenses that the county has. Intergovernmental is state aid. Regulation and compliance are fines, forfeitures, and various other fees, permits, large group, etc. Public charges for service. These are departmental fees that are charged within various departments within the county. Sheriff, HHS, Pine Valley, etc. Other general revenues are various non-departmental fees, so rebated funds, short-term borrowing, and commercial revenues are our investment incomes from the general fund, from any judgments that are issued in circuit court. And then in highway, there's GTA, operational revenue, town and bridge, 50/50 cost share, wheelage tax, and our state maintenance agreements. So those are all ways that we generate revenues, okay? The next slide, we tweaked this a little bit to make it easier to see and understand rather than the pie graph. The proposed budget revenue, you'll see that tax levy makes up $10,341,006. Highway is about 4.4. Commercial revenue, 604,000. Other general revenue is about 1.5. Public charges for service are about 16 million. 98,000 for regulation and compliance, and about 7.7 million for intergovernmental, and $1.7 million in taxes. That's where all of those varying revenue streams are coming from. The next item is our proposed budgeted expenses. So you'll see all of the different areas, what those expenditures for the 2025 year are, and you'll see that total at the bottom is $42,572,645, which means we're balanced. We have a balanced budget, okay?
Balanced budget without using any general fund balance or anything like that?
No ARPA, no supplemental funds at all. This is just us being smarter about the way that we're utilizing our dollars. And so that's really exciting. And that shared revenue definitely helped as well. The expense type summary. So general government is general administration. Public safety is your sheriff, your ambulance service, your emergency government, animal control, and LEPC. Health and social services, that's Pine Valley, health and human services, child support, and veterans. Those are all in that category. Transportation, many of you know, some don't, that we own an airport. So that's our transportation. Highway administration, again, bridge construction, town bridge cost shares, equipment, state maintenance agreement, highway system. Culture, libraries and the county fair. Those are the two pieces of culture that we as a county engage in. Public areas, we have snowmobile trails, county parks, Ash Creek Community Forest, and the Simon Center. Special education, we have our extension office. Natural resources has land conservation, wildlife damage management, nursery stock, recycling, and watershed. And really recycling is kind of rolled in with highway. But county planning, we have Southwest Regional Planning Commission that helps us with a lot of our projects around the county. We have zoning, and we have failing septic systems. County development, economic development. So we are setting aside a small amount of money each year towards economic development. Debt service, It's just what it says it is. It's the money that we owe for our debt service payments. And then capital projects, again, those are the large-scale projects that we do each year. Those come before you during about May, June timeframe, and you approve all of those capital expenditures each year. The proposed budget expenses. So you'll see capital projects are about 1.17 million. Again, with only borrowing $600,000, so that's pretty exciting. Our debt service, 3.351 million. County development, 37,500. County planning, 154,000. Natural resources, about 540,000. Special education, 202,000. Public areas, 622,000 roughly. Culture, about 380,000. Highways coming in right around 6.1 million. Transportation is about 36,000. Health and social services is about $21,000. Public safety is about 5.5 million. And general government is about 3.2 million. So again, that's where you're gonna see those expenses. The next slide shows a summary of our debt service, what the balance remaining is, and when the maturity date is. So as you can see, we have one that will be falling off in March of 2025. That was a debt consolidation bond. We'll make the final payment of $245,000. We have another debt consolidation bond that will mature in March of 2027. The balance remaining there is $1,020,000. We have capital improvement borrowing that was about $1.8 million. That matures in 2028. And then we don't see maturation until 2035, 2036, and 2038. Those two larger amounts, 7.9 million and a little over 7 million, almost 7.1 million, are both Pine Valley bonds. And then we have the radio tower project, which is, again, underway, yet to be completed, for a total of $26,220,000. And then on to the right there, you see what the total debt payment is. You saw that in the slide prior, $3,351,488 annually is what we utilize to pay debt service. So, gross levy. Where are the largest expenditures by department? You'll see the sheriff's office comes in at $4 million. Our debt service is about $3.4 million. Highways about 1.2. Institutional cost funds about 1.4. HHS, and I want to highlight this because there's a lot of misinformation surrounding how much of the levy HHS utilizes. Out of the $21 million that you saw in that whole big picture, now granted, that has Pine Valley, that has other items in it, but the large amount of services that are provided to our community cost $994,000, and that is astronomical. They do such a great job of generating those revenues, obtaining those reimbursements, and I think it's a testament to the passion that they have for our citizens and for our community. All other departments, you see a negative number here. Larry?
Yes, that's a negative number because actually all those other departments, it's the general fund, and those general funds actually receive revenues in excess of expenses, and those actually use, when you're talking about such things as sales tax is included in that. You're talking about the special assessments that are included in that. You're also talking about Pine Valley's contribution back to us that is included in that. Our borrowing is included in that. So there's actually more revenues in that general fund than there is expenses. That actually subsidizes the rest of the funds that are drawn off the levy. So if they didn't have that revenue in there, the levy would actually be higher.
So administration is a great example. County administration will never make money. We have no way to generate revenue. But those areas that are generating revenue in excess of what they're spending, that goes into that general fund, and that continues to help fund all of the other operations that are happening within the county that don't have the ability to generate their own revenue. So that's what that number means, and that's why it looks like a negative, because that's excess funds there. So, 2025 proposed gross levy, and you'll see down at the bottom, $10,807,920.23. That was 2024. 2025 levy, $10,341,005.79. So our proposed gross levy is actually down about $467,000 this year, okay? Our proposed net levy overall this year is about $6.7 million. So you're going to see that this is a little bit different from the initial proposed budget. And again, as I stated, you gave us some directives, you gave us some guidance on what you wanted included in this final budget. And so we did that. And so Larry is going to explain to you the next sheet and how that affected those overall proposed budget numbers.
Okay, virtually this sheet here, as you can see, just starts out with the preliminary budget and it goes over to the proposed budget. And virtually you can see the differences, it just goes right down the line, the budgeted expenses. And you can see under general government, the preliminary budget was $3,266,080. And then at the proposed budget was $3,272,763, the difference of 6,683. If you look at those differences, if you go down below, there's a reconciliation. You can see where the preliminary budget is. It's $42,474,103. You can see where the preliminary budget is, and then what we did in the preliminary budget is we added one sheriff deputy for $36,278. We added, we moved up two departments, land conservation and deeds. We moved up two of those folks to the 35, from 35 hours a week to 40 hours a week. They had been cut to 35 hours a week in the past. We had moved two departments this year to string two departments out of, I believe, 6 that were still on 35 hours a week. We moved two departments up, and that cost $33,270. When we took those funds, we took $71,000 out of the capital projects funds in order to pay for those. That comes out to our proposed budget, and our proposed budget is the $572,645. That difference of $1,468, that is the difference in the estimated shared revenue that we originally estimated. We originally estimated shared revenue at about 5% increase, and I think we were about $1,458 off, so we had to make that adjustment to the preliminary budget. So that's what that other is. I know that's a lot of numbers and a lot of reconciliation. Virtually, we just went from, we took about $70,000 of extra expenses, and we took all that extra expense out of, we had about $300,000 that was sitting in capital projects, and we reduced that number from probably about $299,000 that was sitting in capital projects. We moved that down to about $221,000 to facilitate those two moves.
And when he's saying money that's sitting there, that was money that we had set aside in the budget this year. So rather than putting away $300,000, we're putting away a little less to fund these internally. And as you know, we're working on building up our capital project fund, because historically we're having to borrow. If we can build this up and get it to a sustainable level, that way we won't have to borrow when we have capital projects. We'll have a fund that is continually being replenished, and we can utilize those dollars within our budget. So that's the explanation there. That shows what those differences are. And again, the budget is balanced. Those numbers all match up. So with that, any questions on the budget?
Mr. McGuire.
I wanted to know how the contingency fund was affected there. That went a little fast for me. Was there money taken out of that fund or money put into that fund?
There was no money taken out of the contingency fund.
There was not.
No.
Did we carry a balance in the contingency fund?
We do. I don't know what it is off the top of my head though.
It's 100, there's not very
Not
much.
much. It's
125 roughly.
Yeah.
121,000, 10%?
Yeah, 125,000, 21, around 120 something, I believe,
Yeah.
without memorizing the number.
It's not a lot.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
Is that a normal amount, or is that low for, do we have an average over a period of years on that contingency fund?
We'd have to get that data.
I don't know over the years.
Yeah, I would say that we're doing a better job now anticipating a lot of things, so our reliance on that as a funding source has diminished over the last couple years.
We haven't used it.
Yeah,
We haven't
You haven't
broken
used
it.
it?
No,
not in the
haven't
last
touched
couple
it.
years.
Haven't needed to.
Those who've been on the board for a while remember we used to hit that for things fairly regularly.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr.
10 years ago, we made a resolution that said we had to continuously carry at least 3 months.
Yes, and that's a general
And
fund
that has
balance you're
been
talking about. yeah.
Basically, our contingency fund. Like just good bookkeeping practices, carrying at least
Well,
3 months.
that's the general fund balance, but then we have a contingency fund as well. That is for those unexpected expenditures that we can utilize, you know, on a whim if we really need to.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Point is, we're not broke.
No. We are not.
Mr. McKee,
Okay, what is the mill rate for the county share
Larry?
this year, and what was it, or for this year and for 2020?
I want to say last year it was 0.95 and this year is 0.7 something, but in essence, our levy, our allowable levy went down this year because the mill rate went down.
and the other thing that's significant, we reduced that short-term borrowing, so there won't be as much county debt levy on people's property tax bills this year as there have been in the past.
Correct. But yeah, it was kind of a kick in the pants to realize that our allowable levy amount went down because our net new construction is down, not up. So again, we're not growing, and that really does affect then what we can utilize to fund our operations. So,
Is it the point 0.00525, 0.00523? Yeah. 0.00525, and last year was 0.00582.
Yep.
So, and equalized value was a little higher this year as well. So, I'm not the official namer of the mill rate, that's more of the treasurer thing.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I can tell you that equalized values were increased this year, which is going to affect that to a certain degree as well.
Because everybody got reassessed, right?
I think a large number of people did get reassessed. They did notice that value was a little different than it was the year before, so.
Other questions? And this is a public hearing, so the public can ask questions too. Go ahead.
I'm just looking at the resolution.
That's next on our agenda, so.
Well, I know what the question about.
Okay.
We're gonna wait, because it's about the dollar amount that's referred to. What are the dollar amounts? It says 1.5, and I'm wondering if that should be 1.7.
That was the
That's
county's
just the sales tax.
Okay, but
Yeah, it did show
the
1.7.
one on there just says taxes on the budget revenues, it says taxes.
Besides sales tax, taxes.
Oh, that should be 1. It should be, sales tax is 1.5 million, so
That's
that,
of that,
yeah.
of that amount, okay.
Yeah, yes, I can pull it up to see.
That's okay, it just says
Okay.
taxes, so I wanted to make sure our
Yeah.
number was correct.
So the 1.5 million is what is used for the apportionment, and then that's distributed out as a credit, if you will, to municipalities based on their TID out value, so. There could be some other things, I can pull up the workbook if you want.
No, that's okay, I just want to make sure our numbers are
Okay.
correct.
Yep, very good, thank you. Any other questions on the 2025 Richland County budget? Well, hearing no questions, we will close the public hearing on the budget and move to the next item on our agenda, which is a resolution adopting the Richland County budget for 2025.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we haven't had the resolution read yet,
Oh, okay.
Coming.
but I'll give you the motion as soon as it's done, okay?
This will be resolution number 24-71. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that the 2025 budget includes revenues from the county sales tax in the estimated amount of 1.5 million. Be it further resolved that the sum of $341,579 be used and hereby is levied upon all taxable property in Richland County for county purposes for the year 2024. And be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passage and publication. This is being offered to you by the Finance and Executive Standing Committee on October 8th of 2024.
Okay, now for the motion.
No, I'll make that.
Yes, Mr. McKee makes the motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Supervisor Fleming. Any further discussion? I want to commend all the county staff for their input in making this happen. Our budget process has gone significantly smoother over the last couple of years than what we used to go through years ago. So thank you to everyone who puts effort into this and helps us understand it. We have 25. Okay, we apparently have a typo. It says for the year 2024. Is that?
Oh, should be year 2025.
Okay, we'll correct that as a typo. So we have our motion and our second. All those in favor of adopting the county's 2025 budget, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the resolution is adopted. Thank you very much. All right, that brings us to item 10, an ordinance relating to a parcel belonging to Al Vigneri in the town of Richland.
This will be ordinance number 24-17, amendment number 604 to the Richland County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance number 5. The following described 2.14 acre parcel belonging to Al Vigneri in the town of Richland is hereby rezoned from ag forestry to residential 1. You have the legal description there. This ordinance is being offered to you by the Natural Resources Committee on October 7 of 2024.
Okay, looking for a motion on this ordinance. Motion by McKee, second by Gill. And discussion.
I can do it.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Kathy Cooper. Basically, Al is selling that acreage to a family member. They're gonna build a house, and then they're gonna have to be residents there, and then they're going to, but the rest of the land is all still gonna remain in agriculture.
Any questions? Those in favor of the ordinance, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ordinance is adopted. Number 11, ordinance relating to a parcel belonging to Rowan Whipperforth in the town of Orion.
This will be ordinance number 24-18, amendment number 605 to zoning ordinance number 5. The following described 23.66 acre parcel belonging to Rowan Whipperforth in the town of Orion is hereby rezoned from ag forestry to ag residential district. You have the legal description there. This ordinance is being offered to you by the Natural Resources Standing Committee, again on October 7 of 2024.
We have a motion on this one. Motion by Mr. Cooey, second by Mr. Manning. And discussion, Kathy.
Rowan had sold some acreage to his grandparents, and that was in last month's. And to quit having these little remnant parcels left that are not zoned in the correct district, we are having them to zone, because it's less than 35 acres, put it from ag forestry to ag residential.
Very good. Any questions on this one? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We adopted that ordinance. Number 12, an ordinance relating to a parcel belonging to Aaron Wallace in the town of Forest.
This will be ordinance number 24-19, amendment number 606 to the zoning ordinance number 5. The following described 10.81 acre parcel belonging to Aaron Wallace in the town of Forest is hereby rezoned from ag forestry to ag residential district. You have the legal description there. Again, this is being offered to you by the Natural Resources Standing Committee on October 7 of 2024.
For the ordinance, motion. Motion by Mr. Cosgrove, second by Mr. Cooey. Discussion.
Aaron and his wife are buying some land from the family, and the rest will remain agricultural land, ag forest land, but they need to be zoned to ag forestry, ag residential.
Very good. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We've adopted that ordinance. Item number 13 on our agenda, ordinance relating to a parcel belonging to David Bristol in the town of Dayton.
This will be ordinance number 24-20, amendment number 607 to zoning ordinance number 5. The following described 0.946 acre parcel belonging to David Bristol in the town of Dayton is hereby rezoned from ag forestry to residential 1. Legal description is listed there. This ordinance is offered to you by the Natural Resources Standing Committee on October 7 of 2024.
Would you approve the ordinance? Do we have a motion? Motion by Mr. Cooey, second by Mr. Woodhouse. And discussion.
This one, and actually I'm sorry Gary, I might have to rely on you how this works. David and Echo Bristol own like 2 little parcels, and they're trying to, either one was zoned in the park zoning district, and am I doing it right?
His mother owned one,
And when she died, he inherited one,
Yep,
and the other one he had owned previously.
yep, so they're,
And
rezoned.
and they're doing, it always happen.
always trying, so they're just fixing an issue.
Okay, we're cleaning up the problem.
Mhm.
Any questions on this one? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ordinance is adopted. Item 14, ordinance relating to a parcel belonging to Robert McConkey in the town of Richland.
This is ordinance number 24-21, amendment number 608 to zoning ordinance number 5. The following described 10.38 acre parcel belonging to Robert McConkey in the town of Richland is rezoned from ag forestry to ag residential. Legal description is listed as follows. This ordinance is once again offered by the Natural Resources Standing Committee on October 7 of 2024.
The ordinance, do we have a motion? Motion by Mr. Cooey, second by Mr. Manning, and discussion.
There's a house on this parcel, it's actually the campground, part of the campground out there, and it's just like a cleanup thing again, just trying to, he was gonna build something, so they had to clean it up.
Anybody have a question on this one? If not, all those in favor of the ordinance say aye. Anyone opposed? You've adopted that one. Item 15, an ordinance relating to a parcel belonging to Melvin Mishler in the town of Henrietta.
This is ordinance number 24-22, amendment number 609. The following described 2.04 acre parcel belonging to Melvin Mishler in the town of Forest is hereby rezoned from ag forestry to residential. I believe that should have said town of Henrietta. Abby?
It could be,
I believe.
yep, it says on mine, that's it, yeah.
Okay, so that should say town of Henrietta, not
Fix
Forest.
that as a typo.
Okay. Is hereby rezoned from ag forestry to residential 1. Legal descriptions listed. This is offered to you by the Natural Resources Standing Committee on October 7, 2024.
For motion on this one? Motion by Manning, second by McKee. And discussion.
This one is, they're selling off the residence, so that needs to be zoned, because the acreage is residential 1. And the rest of it will be, and that'll be the next one, they're rezoning it, it's gonna be less than 35 acres, remaining, what's left, what he owns, that'll be going to the, yeah.
So this is the first of 2 for this one. Any questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Ordinance is adopted, and now an ordinance relating to another parcel belonging to Melvin Mishler in the town of Henrietta.
This will be ordinance number 24-23, amendment number 610, zoning ordinance number 5. The following described 34.96 acre parcel belongs to Melvin Mishler in the town of Henrietta, not
Fixing a
Forest.
typo again, yeah.
Is hereby rezoned from ag forestry to ag residential district. The legal description is listed as follows, and this ordinance is being offered again by the Natural Resources Standing Committee on October 7, 2024.
For a motion. Motion by Mr. Woodhouse, second by Supervisor Williamson. And Kathy already explained this one to us. This is the remaining parcel, getting it zoned properly for the size it is. Any further questions on this one? As all in favor of the ordinance, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That ordinance is adopted. Item 17, a resolution approving the town of Ithaca's rezoning of a parcel belonging to John Herbst.
Okay, this will be resolution number 24-72. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that in accordance with Wisconsin statute section 60.62 sub 3, that approval is hereby granted for the rezoning. The following describes 7.77 acre parcel from the Farmland Preservation District to the Commercial District in accordance with the town of Ithaca zoning ordinance. We have the legal description there. Be it further resolved that the zoning administrator shall submit a copy of this resolution to the known clerk of the town of Ithaca, and be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passing publication. Once again offered to you by the Natural Resources Standing Committee on October 7 of 2024, not 2023.
Would you approve the resolution? Do I have a motion? Motion by Supervisor Kramer, second by Mr. McKee. And discussion?
I'll take that. I'm
Yes.
Michelle Lobshaw, I'm the zoning administrator for Ithaca. And this is a parcel that is being sold to Larry and Sherry Nelson and Lori Pizer. They're going to turn the old German house into an Airbnb with hopes of adding a wedding venue as well. hence why it's being zoned commercial. So it just had to be done so they could move forward with that.
Anybody have questions? If you're in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The resolution is adopted. Thank you. Item 18, a report on petitions for zoning amendments received since the last county board session.
There'll be 2 this next time.
There will be 2.
And it's again, some of this cleanup.
Okay. For those to the Natural Resources Committee. And a report on petitions for zoning received recommended for denial by the Natural Resources.
Nothing.
We have none. Okay, very good. Thank you. That brings us to item 20, an ordinance approving an amendment to the Richland County zoning ordinance number 5.
This will be ordinance number 24-24, an ordinance approving an amendment to Richland County zoning ordinance number 5. The Richland County Board of Supervisors does hereby ordain in section 2C1B sub 3 of the Richland County zoning ordinance number 5 is amended to read as follows. That the section 3 of that will list up to 2 farm residences. Be it further ordained that this ordinance shall be effective upon its passing and publication, and is again offered to you by the Natural Resources Standing Committee on October 7 of 2024.
For the ordinance, we have a motion. Motion by Supervisor Fleming, second by Mr. Manning. And discussion on this change.
The reason this change was brought forth is because the ordinance is silent on, in ag forestry district, how many farm residences can be put on there. And in consultation with Attorney Wendell, we decided 2, because in theory they could have do a whole lot more. So we thought we'd clean this up and make it obvious what's allowed.
Questions from the board? Nobody has a question, then all in favor of the, yes, go ahead.
How does that affect anybody in the county?
We haven't had too many. We just had a couple people lately that they want to go up to the 2, but they didn't know if there's any more that was allowed, and we just.
I'm just curious, you know, the size of the farms are much bigger than they were at one time.
Right, but that's on a parcel zoned ag forestry.
Okay, so just ag forestry, okay.
Yeah, so if they, you know, if they take a different parcel and it's 40 acres and they want to put, I mean, that's.
Yeah, understood. Just because, you know, you
Yep.
see where I'm going with.
Yep, I do.
Okay.
Any other questions? All in favor of the ordinance, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ordinance is adopted. Item 21, a resolution setting the fee for certain rezoning.
This will be resolution number 24-73. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that the fee for the rezoning of parcels which are not new land division shall be set at $125. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passing publication. Is once again offered to you by the Natural Resources Standing Committee on October 7 of 2024.
So we have a motion first to discuss. Motion by Mr. Gill, second by Supervisor Fleming, and discussion. We have a placeholder there for an ordinance.
Yeah, so the draft of this ordinance is apparently what got uploaded. I would have to dig through and find, unless Kathy, you know it off the top of your head, what the actual citation would be.
No, I don't have that with me.
But there is in the zoning ordinance a fee.
Fee schedule towards the end.
And so we would be amending that. And either this could be postponed if you'd rather that citation be inserted prior to, or we can simply move to amend to incorporate the proper citation.
What's your pleasure?
Kathy, when were you thinking of trying to put this in effect?
As soon as we can. We've got a lot of people that, what we're trying to do is there's people come in to get a different permit for a house, a building, a driveway permit, a sanitary permit. There's these little remnant parcels that are zoned incorrectly.
Yep.
And we don't have to do anything besides,
So they're being penalized because this was.
they got to pay the 400, the 500 some
Right,
bucks, $550 for it, and it's, we don't feel that, I mean, we don't know why those parcels exist the way they are. Now, if you're coming in and doing a new, that's different, but these we don't consider new because we're wanting to try to clean up some of the remnant parcels.
And our intent here is to amend our county ordinance, it's just we don't have that specific ordinance listed
Yep.
here, and we would have to fill that in later
And
if we approve this the way it is now.
alternative is simply take out everything between the commas. So rezoning of parcels which are not new land division shall be set at $125, because that's in there somewhere.
That would affect the same thing, if anybody wanted to make that an amendment.
I'll make that.
Mr. Cooey proposes that amendment of striking the language between those two commas, so it will read, which are not a new land division shall be set at $125.
Second.
Second by Mr. Williamson. Any discussion on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment to this resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, now to consideration of the resolution as amended. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Our amended resolution is adopted. Thank you. Item 22, a resolution approving the Natural Resources Standing Committee applying for and accepting a lake monitoring and protection grant from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources.
Okay, this will be resolution number 24-74. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that approval is hereby granted to the Land Conservation Committee to apply for a lake monitoring and protection grant from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources in the amount of up to $8,560 to pay for staff time and supplies for aquatic invasive species projects in the county. Be it further resolved that the Richland County Land Conservation Department will meet the financial obligations necessary to fully and satisfactorily complete the project and hereby authorize and empowers the following employees to submit the following documents to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources for the financial assistance that may be available. You have a list there for you in the resolution. Be it further resolved that there is no county match required for this grant and approval is hereby granted for the grant funds to be spent in accordance with the terms of the grant. And the county conservationist, Ms. Kathy Cooper, is hereby authorized to sign on behalf of the county any documents needed to carry out this resolution. Be it further resolved that the applicant will comply with all local, state, and federal rules, regulations, and ordinances relating to the project and the cost share agreement. And be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passing publication. This is once again being offered to you by the Natural Resources Standing Committee on October 7, 2024.
Thank you, that was a mouthful.
Thanks a lot.
Sorry.
Motion by Mr. Manning, second by Supervisor Fleming.
I see I have a typo in there. I have Land Conservation Committee and it should be Natural Resources Committee.
Okay, we'll fix that as a typo.
And this is like a grant we could apply for every year, and as we spend the money, we can, at the end of the year, we can send in for reimbursement. And the grant has to be written the resolution has to be written this day for the DNR.
Yep. Didn't sound like our words. Any questions on this? Yes, Mr.
What does this thing do?
Basically, we do things like we do clean boats, clean water education at the boat landings. When we get a chance to there, we do what we call a snapshot day. This year we went out to the kayak landing out 80, and we spent 2 hours looking for if there's any invasives we saw. It's the signage at the boat landings. It's bait shop, talking to bait shop landowners. It's education to prevent the spread of aquatic invasive species.
Other questions? Yes, go ahead.
Do you do anything with Lead Lake at all?
We haven't been up there yet for the clean boats, clean water. We've been in consultation with the DNR on that, and I know there's been issues with the algae, but
Yeah.
the only way you can do that is kind of chemical, maybe. And if it's going to control it or not, I don't know if we want to chemically treat that whole lake. We don't have. I don't think there's enough money here to do that, getting from the state. So that's something the village may have to apply for, because it's owned by the village, a special grant to do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No.
Show there's no opposition. And the resolution is adopted. Item 23, reports from the county administrator on short-term borrowing, wage study update, and Tyler implementation update.
thought there was a short-term borrowing piece in here.
Heather,
Didn't you get up with it?
short-term borrowing, rates for the updating Tyler implementation.
Yeah, I thought that was in the packet. There was a chart. At any rate, we applied for 3 different banks. So Larry put out to 3 local banks for short-term borrowing. And that amount is not to exceed, as the prior resolution indicated, $601,200. And I was authorized to enter into and execute the agreement, but I didn't feel appropriate doing that before bringing it back to the committee or to the board, just so that you're aware of what that looked like. So Richland County Bank came back with an interest rate of 5.5%. Royal Bank came back with an interest rate of 5.45%. And Community First Bank came back with an interest rate of 4.49%. So we do plan to award the short-term borrowing to Community First Bank, and we will be doing that after this board meeting is complete.
Mr.
Did you
McKee.
get a quote from People's Community Bank?
Larry, how many banks did you put it out to?
I put it up to those 3 banks.
Yep, so it was put out to those 3 banks. Any other questions on the short-term borrowing? All right, so then additionally, we, as you know, we're in the wage study, and we are in the appeals phase now. So all of the new job descriptions, I would say all, with the exception of maybe 5 or 6 that were either missed or need to be tweaked, are done. They've been sent out to employees. Employees now have them in their hands. We had employee meetings yesterday. We had meetings at 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and 3 o'clock. So Tessa Melvin was here. We also had WebEx access for all of those meetings and recorded the first meeting. Well, we recorded all of them, but we are going to post the first meeting has been posted for employee access. And that email has been sent out so that anyone that was unable to attend could watch that meeting. That meeting was the one with the most questions asked, so that's why we posted that. What happens now is employees look over their job description. If there are things in there that they don't agree with or are unnecessary, they strike them. If there are things that they feel need to be represented more accurately, they can note these on the form. So there's a form that went out to all employees today. They have until next Tuesday to complete them and return them to me. I will review them, and then I scan them all in, and I upload them, and I send them to the employee, their supervisor, and to Tessa Melvin, so that any changes that are made, just like with the PAQs that they all did that determined their job description, all of those changes, all of those documents were returned to the employee along with the new job description. So it's completely transparent. They can see what was changed. They can ask why it was changed if they're unhappy with it. Really good engagement yesterday. And again, as I said last night, Tessa was here. She spoke to the executive committee about the 5% pool of money we have and the implementation. And we are on track to be able to do a lot of good with that pool of money. So I commend all of you for making this a priority, because we are going to be able to ensure that we're paying our people a competitive wage. One of the things that I think will make everyone's hair kind of stand on end, we have 90 employees that are making under $20 an hour. And so that's our priority number 1, is
That's
ensuring
90 full-time employees.
90 full-time employees that are making under $20 an hour. So we are prioritizing ensuring that they are being paid a reasonable market wage. Now, if their market doesn't put them at $20, we're not going to pay them $20. We'll pay them what the market dictates. But again, it's rectifying that. It's moving towards ensuring that we are competitive. So that once that process is done, she will develop our new wage scale. She'll bring that back. She has some additional information to present to executive and finance. If they bless it, then it will come back here. And then after that, each employee does get to see their placement on the scale, and they get one last chance to appeal. Not because they don't like the money that they're getting, but because they really truly do feel that something is missing from the job description. So we're getting close to the end of this, and our hopes are to be able to implement then that first payroll in 2025. So very, very exciting, and really looking forward to getting that done for our employees. Tyler implementation. So as you all know, we're working towards getting this Tyler implementation done. There are a lot of employees dedicating some time to taking training, being in on a number of calls, and Larry is the project manager on the Tyler implementation, so I'm going to let him speak to you about how those things are going.
Thank you. Right now, on the Tyler project, we got the core group. I'll say the super users or the core group is in training. We're doing module training and setup. So that's, right now we're doing that. We just had a data pull. So they pulled the data, the first data pull along with the first report pull. So that means that they pulled, first they took our data and it's going into their system and starting to set up our system with their system. We have end user training will be starting soon. That means the guys that are using the software, their training will be starting soon. We're still on track. We're still set to be, it'll be in the first, just dipping in the Q2 of 2025. It looks like we got about 9 payrolls. They're pretty complex. We're gonna try to get them down to 1 and get them all combined. So that's gonna take us a couple extra weeks they want to give us to try getting that all figured out. So that's gonna push it back probably into that Q2 of 2025 for fully finished.
So yes, our payroll, for any of you who want a little bit of an education, come and watch payroll being processed because it is very antiquated and takes way more time than it should. So this is really exciting to be able to save so much staff time and energy and put a lot more of the responsibility on the employee to ensure that their time cards look correct and that everything gets submitted as it should. And we'll have workflow documentation. We'll be able to see if there's a hiccup in the process. We'll know exactly where it is and where we need to fix. So it's really, really great stuff. So with that, those are the end of my major updates for today.
Questions for the administrator on these reports?
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Brewer.
So we'll no longer use the stand-up desk in your office to do the payroll?
Right.
All right. That brings us to item 24 on the agenda, resolution approving revisions to the Richland County Rules of the Board. And we have Attorney Andy Phillips with us tonight, who's been assisted us with developing our set of rules that are currently in effect and also with looking at these revisions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With permission, could I sit in an open seat so I'm not talking into the back of people's heads?
Yes.
Thank you for having me back here at the meeting. It's great to see everybody again. As the chair mentioned, I assisted the county with the preparation of the board rules, and like every well-laid plan, we have revisions 8 months after we got done with the board rules. And the revisions came about as a result of discussions that I've had with board leadership, your administrator, your county clerk, about some of the concerns that were occurring or that we were anticipating, and how other counties have dealt with some of those concerns. And so they contacted me as counsel for the Counties Association and said, what are some other counties doing? How do they deal with some of these issues, and how do we best deal with the issues here in Richland County? And so I was tasked with preparing some draft rules and amendments to your rules to address some of those issues, and that's what's before you this evening. The rule amendments are broken down into 4 basic categories. And again, Mr. Chair, with permission, maybe we could take each category at a time so that we could perhaps focus the discussion on questions. The first section, and I believe it's within your materials, is new section 4.10 of the rules. And I know that right after new 4.10, I have a typo because there's old 4.10. Old 4.10 will be renumbered 4.11. And so new 4.10 deals with the concept of a board member's attendance at a closed session of a committee meeting when that board member is not a member of that committee. I think we know that Robert's Rules of Order have been adopted as the rules of procedure for Richland County Board and Committee proceedings. We also know that Robert's Rules of Order has a provision that allows for the exclusion of somebody from a committee meeting or a board meeting if they're not a member of that board or committee. And we also know that Wisconsin state statute says that you have to have a rule on the books in order to exclude a board member from a committee meeting if that board member is not a member of the committee. And so rather than relying upon incorporation by reference, we thought it best to place it right here in the board rules to establish expectations about when somebody may be excused from a closed session of a committee meeting if that person is not a member of the committee. The mechanism or procedure that we have put in these board rules says that it happens by majority vote of the committee. In other words, it's not one person who has control over the question of exclusion. It is a majority vote of the committee. That majority vote can be instigated by motion of a member of the committee, or it can be brought about by the chair of that particular committee. So either way is fine. Regardless, it takes a majority vote of the committee to exclude somebody from closed session if they're a board member and not a member of a particular committee. I don't know if there's anything, Mr. Chair, that I might have missed in the discussion, or...
What that does is it creates the expectation that a person is allowed to be unless they were specifically excluded by this vote.
That's exactly right. And so you, as a board member, are entitled to be at open session and closed session of a committee meeting, even if you're not a member of the committee, unless the committee takes affirmative action by majority vote excluding you from that meeting.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Andy, would you share some of the examples of why at times it doesn't make sense for everyone to be included? You shared some of those with us yesterday.
So, in my experience as an attorney who's represented county governments across the state for about 30 years now, I've been in situations where a county board member has actively sued a county, and so it's impossible to get into closed session to have a discussion about that litigation if the opponent in the litigation is entitled to be in that closed session meeting. That's one example. Second is that the county at times deals with very sensitive personnel issues. And there's a reason to go into closed session to discuss personnel issues, whether it be somebody's reputation, their work history, their financial history, other issues that are incredibly confidential in terms of the character of the information. And so it's very important, in my estimation, again, as an attorney that represents counties, that we maintain information in confidence and with as few people as possible having a right to that information. It's purely need to know. And so those are just a couple of circumstances where I have found it incredibly helpful to have a rule on the books establishing expectations about who can be in that closed session.
Mr. McKee.
We're only talking about closed session.
Closed sessions of committees.
Anybody can attend the meeting. They just
Anybody can attend the meeting, and this rule is that anybody who is a board member can attend the closed session too, unless it's specifically said by a majority vote that they're not allowed to.
Oh, okay.
Other questions in this section? Mr. Brewer.
Isn't though normally the chair of that committee in the past, and maybe that's why we're cleaning this up, the chair declares that I want so-and-so and so-and-so to stay
And we did ask Andy about that. The chair can list those and make that part of the motion to go into closed session, so there is a board vote on that. But I think you kind of answered your own question that, yeah, it's no longer just the chair saying this, it is the committee voting.
So how does this vote come about then?
Andy just talked about that a moment ago.
Either somebody makes a motion to exclude a supervisor, or the chair can say that the particular supervisor is excused. It's just in order to effectuate that supervisor being excused, it requires a majority vote.
Something has to set it in motion. And
Correct.
I'm wondering what kind of language would be appropriate.
It can either be part of the motion to go into closed session, or it could be a separate motion to
I would
exclude.
think so. You need to set it in motion.
Mr. McGuire.
Do we have a list, is the county in charge of a list of specific items that we can or cannot go into closed session about? In other words, we can't just say, let's go into closed session for anything. We have to have an item list.
There are statutory things, and Andy, maybe you can address that?
Yeah, subject to your corporation council, there's extra open meetings law for the county. It's 19.85 sub 1 of the statutes, which has 11 different reasons that you go into closed session. In county meetings, typically I see it either for a quasi-judicial hearing, so you're taking evidence to make a decision as a result of that hearing, a personnel issue for competitive or bargaining reasons, when somebody's personal, financial, medical, or social history is going to be discussed, or when you're going to confer with legal counsel about a pending claim. Those are the reasons in statute.
What is that statute number?
19.85, subsection 1.
The reason why I asked that because I'm a big believer in a very simple statement here that should guide all this, and that is we conducting public business, and public business should be discussed in front of the public. That's my term. That's what I have to say about it.
That's generally very true, yes.
Except for everything he just mentioned that cannot be discussed in public.
And were we to go into closed sessions for things that weren't on that list, we open ourselves up for trouble.
Right.
Other questions on this section?
Okay, the next section is section 2.11. And the modifications to 2.11 are not tremendous, but it more or less amplifies and emphasizes the nature of the relationship between county board, county administrator, and county staff. And it encourages the utilization of the appropriate protocols, both in terms of getting information as a board supervisor and also providing direction to administrator or staff. I think that the concepts in this amendatory language are already established within your board rules. They're already established within state statute. But I think, again, if we look at the purpose of board rules, and I can recall this discussion, again, 8-9 months ago when we started down the path of creating the board rules in the first place, is to set expectations for the board and for the members of the board of supervisors. And so 2.11, again, the language here is to essentially clarify the nature of the relationship between the county board, the county administrator, and county staff.
See the wording up there. Anybody have questions on this section?
Okay, section 2.14. That's where we have significant amendments to the board rules. 2.14 is essentially what I will refer to as a code of conduct for board member actions and conduct during board, committee, commission meetings. This section was lifted in great part from a couple of different counties that have rules of conduct on their books. One of the counties I worked with extensively on their rules of conduct. And again, I don't think there's anything in these rules of conduct that are earth-shattering or controversial. I think the expectations that are laid out here in the rules of conduct are pretty common sense. So again, the goal here is to provide a set of expectations for how board members will conduct themselves. Subsection A is a simple recitation of what I view to be global understandings of what it means to be a board member and how one conducts him or herself. Subsection B, if we scroll down, relates to, if I recall, board member conduct during meetings, whether it be a board meeting or a committee or commission meeting. Subsection C deals specifically with conduct outside of meetings. And then subsection D, again, has more of a global view toward board member conduct and the expectations. I'd like to make it very clear, we had a lot of discussion, me, board leadership, and county administrator, about the distinction between rules of conduct and a code of ethics. And I think people just in normal conversation don't have a clear understanding of the distinction between those two concepts. You already have a code of ethics, you already have an ethics committee. That code of ethics and your ethics committee deal with defined standards of ethical conduct based primarily on 19.59 of the Wisconsin statutes. When the state defines ethical conduct in the statutes, it's speaking to primarily financial conflicts of interest and potential for financial conflicts of interest. As you'll note in these rules of conduct, we're not dealing with financial conflicts of interest or potential financial conflicts of interest. We're dealing with rules of conduct. And so I don't want anybody to be confused about the purpose of this amendment to your board rules. It's not new ethical standards. You already have a code of ethics. You already have an ethics committee. These are rules of conduct governing your conduct as board supervisor in meetings, whether it be board or committee meetings, in relationships with staff, in relationships with the public, in those types of circumstances. You as the board police conduct under these standards. It's not an ethics issue. So I just wanted to make that clear from the outset, that there is a significant distinction between a code of conduct like we see here and ethical standards that we see in ethics codes. As I mentioned before, other counties have established codes of conduct or rules of conduct that look very similar to the language that you see before you. I can tell you, and again, this is just my own observation, it has led to a greater level of decorum in board and committee meetings. And of course, we know in Robert's Rules of Order, they speak to this concept of decorum. What is that expected for decorum purposes at board and committee meetings? So I've seen rules of conduct like this be very helpful. So that's why they're here. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Questions on this section? This one has a lot more stuff in it.
Okay, and then the final area is the new section 5.01 dealing with enforcement of the board rules. If we look at the new section 5.01, there is nothing in this section that doesn't already exist in terms of an enforcement mechanism for these board rules. It's just not spelled out in the board rules. So again, in order to establish expectations, we thought it best to lay out the process for enforcement of the board rules. If somebody is acting outside the boundaries of the expectations set forth in the board rules, what happens? And so there is a process here related to enforcement of these board rules. In subsection B, we see the potential remedies that are available if somebody violates the board rules. And they go all the way from a private meeting to a public censure, to a resolution censure, to a referral to the Executive and Finance Committee to see if cause exists to seek the removal of that board member from the board. I want to reiterate that this board does not have independent authority to remove somebody from office simply because they violate the board rules. What I mean by that is Chapter 17 of the statutes already contains a detailed process as to how somebody is removed from the county board. It can happen one of two ways. Either they are recalled by the electorate, or there is a removal by 2/3 vote of this body based upon written verified charges filed by a taxpayer resident after a full due process hearing related to those charges. And so the referral to the Executive and Finance Committee is only one step. The Executive Finance Committee has no independent authority to remove somebody from this board either. So again, this doesn't create new process. The process already exists in state law. But having this process laid out in the board rules establishes the expectations for what happens if somebody acts outside the boundaries that we establish here in the board rules. And then finally, I spoke earlier about the distinction between rules of conduct and ethics. There may be a situation where we have an ethical problem under our ethics ordinance or an ethical problem under the State Ethics Code for Local Government Officials, 19.59 of the statutes. That also is a problem under these board rules. In that circumstance, the Executive and Finance Committee has the authority to refer the matter over to your Ethics Committee, and that referral in and of itself will be considered a complaint under your Ethics Code. Under your Ethics Code currently, your ordinance says that you have to have a written complaint from somebody in order to initiate the process of investigating and adjudicating an ethics violation. If we have a situation where the Executive and Finance Committee makes that referral to the Ethics Committee, it is considered a complaint under your ethics ordinance. So again, maintaining the distinction between those two different situations. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Questions on this section? Questions? Again, And the overall goal here was not we're breaking new ground, it's to incorporate more specificity in some of the things that were there, but maybe not explicitly stated. Is that a fair assessment?
That's a really fair assessment. I'm glad you point that out because I don't want anybody saying, oh, Andy, you missed this 8 months ago. That's not what happened whatsoever. I think that board rules, I've always said this, that they are a living, breathing document and they are not going to exist for 20 years without change. And if they are, that just means you're not paying attention to your board rules and how you operate. They're an evolution, and so I anticipate, fully anticipate, that in another year and a half, when a new board is seated, people might have different ideas about the board rules, and that's okay. You should have those rules conform to what you believe you ought to be doing here as a county board. So that's awesome. So you're right, Mr. Chair. These rules are not earth-shattering, they're not groundbreaking, they already exist, but again, if we're going to establish expectations, let's put them in the board rules, and I think that's the goal.
Before we proceed to the resolution to adopt these, any other questions on stuff we've talked about here? Mr. Manning?
Make a motion.
Oh, okay, well, let's see if anybody else has questions first before we move into making the motion on the resolution. And I don't see any, so Mr. Clerk, if you read the resolution to adopt.
Yes, this will be resolution number 24-75. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that approval is hereby granted to accept the proposed revisions and adopt the revised Richland County Rules of the Board. And be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon passage. This is being offered to you by the Executive and Finance Standing Committee yesterday, October 28th of 2024.
You've heard the resolution. Mr. Manning, you wish to make a motion now? Okay, second. Second by Mr. Frank.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr.
One
Williams.
change I was not yesterday.
You were online, weren't you?
No.
No.
Not
Okay.
for you. No.
He was at the beginning of it.
You were.
No? Okay.
Okay.
Sorry about
No,
that.
no.
We thought you responded to us when we said your
Yeah.
name. Okay.
Okay.
We'll correct that.
Got it.
Probably I was
Yes, that's why.
something down.
He was not there, that's why I was chairing on security meetings. All right. Any other discussion before we vote? Now, all those in favor of adopting these amended board rules, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We have one vote opposed.
Was that it?
Supervisor Hendricks. And Supervisor Miller, so two in opposition.
Shared.
Okay.
I was at that meeting.
You were, that
Yeah,
was,
that was me that was on the call, now that we
Okay.
talked about it, that was me, yeah.
Okay.
What else bad did you say about me?
Oh, I said a lot of things. Say, wait a minute, I thought.
We will clear that up. And correct the minutes and
I
everything.
will,
We're brothers, right?
Supervisor Miller, right?
Yes,
Is he
correct.
opposed?
Supervisor Hendricks and Miller in opposition.
Got it.
With the 2 votes in opposition, the resolution is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure seeing everybody again.
And thanks as well to the Wisconsin Counties Association. Andy's time was being billed to them for assisting us with this. WCA has been able to take his experience in working with us. They recently released a template of county board rules for every other county to use that were based largely on what Andy developed with us earlier this year. So, all right, we will continue on our agenda. We are skipping item 25. We'll put that off till next month. So that brings us to item 26. An ordinance adopting and enacting a new code of ordinances for Richland County, a very exciting ordinance.
Yeah, so we ready?
Yes.
So for those of you that have been around for a little while, this whole codification of ordinances is not a new project, right? So just to give you a summary of kind of how this has happened, I went through my pile of stuff back here. And this codification process actually started on January 18th of 2022 when we approved the adoption of resolution number 22-9, which was to take our current ordinances and have them codified into a codified code of ordinances. So a review of that process, since this has been a bit of time since we started, upon approval, all existing ordinances were scanned and sent to the vendor. The vendor was then called MuniCo, they're now called Civic Plus, so they've had a little merger in the process, but for those of you that have been up in my office, you've probably seen the ginormous ordinance books, right, that are rather old and rather antiquated, so nonetheless, I cannot take credit for scanning all of those items. Miranda scanned all of those items, which was a feat in itself to get them scanned, one. But then second, to the vendor to then dissect and put together in a real codified code of ordinances. So after we sent those out, they sent us a code organization plan that Attorney Wendell and I reviewed around March 1st of 2023. There was a bit of a delay from when we sent the original items to when the items started to move through. The message from the vendor was that they had underestimated the amount of time a project like this takes. There were still some other COVID situations going on that delayed a few things in between there, so nonetheless, we received our first draft manuscript on July 18th of 2023, and that was this thing here. So I show you this because if you've been to my office and seen those books, those ordinance books, they're like 25 million times the size of this, so they were able to take our ordinances and codify them into just this manual that you have here. This document, also known as the manuscript, was then reviewed by myself, Administrator Pesh, and Attorney Wendell. We took this, went through each of the sections, the newly created sections, and then divided that out to all department heads. This was given, there was a 3-step review process that went from August 24th of 2023 through October 6th of 2023. The finalized documents, once reviewed by all applicable departments, were then sent off to, I call them Unico Pacific Plus, to have all those changes, any changes reviewed and put into this that you see here. So fast forwarding to October 1 of 2024, we received this, which is all of our ordinances, and these binders are touchy, so you can look later, but all of our ordinance codified into, a real code of ordinances that once approved will be then placed online. So the thing I want to mention is the ordinances that we had did not change. So when you're adopting this ordinance, you're not adopting a whole new set of laws. These are ones that we already had as a county. They just put them into a more user-friendly format. And the only other change that was done was they did gender neutralization as well, and I believe they may have taken a few things that were no longer relevant. There was a code attorney that did this in conjunction with our own corporation counsel. So what you have before you then is a code of ordinances that will be available online. I don't know, I think there'll be a link to our website to them to then host it for us. This code will then be updated on a quarterly basis, but nonetheless we'll have a new copy printed every year, but then it will be updated and is a live living document that is now accessible on this thing called the internet, which right now it's not. You have to come to my office and dig through these binders. So this may seem like a little bit of a project, but this is one never been done before. It was also one of our strategic goals back in 2021, was one of the first ones we started. So I didn't realize it was going to take years, plural, to do that. I thought it was going to be 6 to 8 months, but nonetheless, we got here and here we are today. So I don't know if you want to give any other information about codification in general, but our ordinances will now be online and searchable. They will continually be updated. Along with this, we also did have some other document storage capabilities that will make resolutions and other things also a little easier to search online as well. So the ordinance you have before you, I won't read all of that, but literally the top part explains that we're just adopting and enacting a new code of ordinances for Richland County. It'll provide the repeal of certain ordinances not included therein. It'll provide a penalty for the violation thereof, providing for the manner of amending such code, and then providing when such code in this ordinance shall become effective. So that is, again, what you have before you as an ordinance. We, upon approval by you guys, will have an adopted code of ordinances, codified code of ordinances.
I move to approve. Motion by Mr. Carroll, second by Supervisor Glassbrenner, and discussion. Mr. Frank. Go ahead, sorry. Go ahead.
Will this allow us to talk to all of our municipalities and City of Richland Center?
The code will be opened up and online for any member of the public to view. So,
in other words, as a resident of the town of Rock Ridge, I'm concerned about dog licensing.
yes, that's a very common thing to search, is like dog licenses, because everyone has issues with dogs running loose, right? That's why we have Fund 81, because it's Chapter 81 statute. So this will address the county's ordinances on that, but then also be accessible for anyone to search. So again, it's not new ordinances, they're taking what we had and revising them. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Frank.
Thank you. So later on in today's meeting, there are 2 ordinances that we're trying to get through.
are those gonna be numbered into this?
Right, so.
Or do they create their own number until every 3 months it's reviewed?
At this point, we can approve these ordinances as so throughout the process, every time we've had like a zoning ordinance amendment, right, there's several of those. I send those off to the vendor and then they've been codifying those up until August. They actually stopped in August because that's when the final draft was being ready to be submitted. So upon a new ordinance being adopted, that process is going to be a little different. There'll be more of an official form. We'll send that off to them, then they codify it into the section of code that's applicable. Maybe assign a new number or subsection or whatever.
Okay, so my next question then is this code of ordinances going to be the ordinance? Because chapter 16 is not correct.
So chapter 16 is, I believe that's kind of relating to ordinance 89-7 that we've
Yes.
been working on. We've discussed this at length, how that will be incorporated into the new code, knowing that some of these things were already in progress or not quite worked out to the point where this was submitted to move the process along.
So my concern is that if this goes out online, this is not correct. And we are working on the corrections and repairs,
Correct.
updates to 89.7. So anyone looking at this is going to go, oh, the sheriff's department has 2 task force officers. No, they don't.
Well, until those revisions are formally passed, then what's on the books is the ordinance that stands.
But those revisions have been passed through amendments to 89.7. Task force officers were taken out 8-10 years ago. They are no longer, and it is listed here as task force officers, they are no longer part. The number of officers listed is not correct. It's 1 short.
Then that was maybe an oversight.
So I believe there was some of that discussion too, was what should be codified and what shouldn't in terms of like a process versus a code of ordinance as an ordinance versus just I don't want to say just but a policy of sorts. So I think there was discussion about what should be codified and what shouldn't be codified.
Correct, but what I'm saying is, as this was reviewed, it may be very well that a department had missed something and didn't strike something out. Or, so that should have been corrected. So if there are those items that you see that are incorrect, we just need to know about them to make sure that they are corrected.
So, but if we adopt these today, these are the rule of ordinance. And they are not right. Correct? I think that's a problem, especially the number of items that are not correct from 89.7 that are totally missing from this document. Is there a way to, can I make an amendment, to bring 89.7 back into this while we're doing this process and then get that corrected? Otherwise, the sheriff has some different authorities here. Just reading this one, task force deputy, the holder of this position must be deputized by the sheriff. There is no such position. Can we bring that 89.7, drop it in here, or at least say that this one's being revised? Can we put that, hey, this section is being revised? Because 89.7 is a big piece along with the hiring process. I mean, there's a lot of work going on with that. How do we make that so this is not?
We need to coordinate with the vendor, sorry.
Right.
So I guess I would, if it's possible, go ahead and pass the code of ordinances except 16. And leave 16 as it is under 89.7 until we finish that process, which hopefully only be a few weeks or a few months. We're close, we're really close. But I think there's some real position gaps here that would be very misinformation to the public.
Is that stuff that needs to be codified or not?
Well, the number of positions does have to be set by the board.
And it's incorrect.
And it sounds like there maybe was action taken by the board that was not incorporated by Muni Code. I don't know.
Probably.
Or I believe that some of those items were stricken from, so that draft, that 16 draft, which is in this manuscript, was provided to department heads to review. So my thought is that the department heads, when they were reviewing this, then were also given a form to list any updates, changes, what have you on there, so then that information was provided to Muni Code. I could look back and see if what the department head noted on there, because my guess is that perhaps that was missed when the department head did the review. In fact, I believe this may have been, Clay's back there.
So I guess my understanding with all this is we've been actively working on 89-7 for over a year now.
Yes.
And so my understanding, and I'm going back to, well, I'm going back a year, I thought that that was what was going to be incorporated in the new codification. So, I mean, I spoke with Derek last week about this because it hit me that, I mean, 95% of 89-7 is gone in chapter 16. So I kind of look at that, that's part of my ditches for the road I drive on and how I run the office. You know, I have the Constitution, state and US Constitution. I've got laws and stuff like that, and I have this ordinances. And so like, you know, like I talked to Bob, I'm not worried about myself. It's like, I'm gonna keep operating how I've been operating. But if it weren't me, and this is what was in ordinances down the road, you may have an issue.
Mr. Carroll.
Maybe a more general question then is, does the vendor have some other quicker way to incorporate changes rather than this quarterly thing, even if it costs more?
No, I mean, I can send them, I can send the changes as soon as they're approved, and they can, I'm not saying the changes aren't, they typically make them quarterly and then display those, you know, have those out live, if you will. I mean, I can send them to them and see if they can be incorporated in there before, but, you know, I don't know how quick that turnaround time is because we haven't adopted the code and gone through that process.
That's my question, so let's find out if they have a quicker way to do it.
So my thought is that I mean, is 89-7 going to be finished on at some point? Because I know it has been kind of carried through several different agendas and we've had this conversation. And if it's going to be passed, then my thought for right now then would be to not adopt this code of ordinances. Yeah, and I guess we can continue to use what we have. It's not like we don't have any ordinances, but if 89-7 is gonna continue to carry on, at some point, the amendment has to be approved. And it was you know, two things going on at the same time. So that would be my only concern, is that then this is 3 more months before it's adopted and then this code is sitting here and we're trying to, you know, move forward with that. So that would be my thought.
I thank you for that comment, because that is exactly my concern too, that this goes on and on and on. Recently, Attorney Wendell and the sheriff and I sat down and sorted out the details of that. It was our hope to have them at the November county board, or at the November public safety meeting. That will be a time to review it, but not approve it. We plan to approve it in the December meeting. So we're what's that?
For 89-7.
For 89-7, complete rewrite, partially into policy and partially into.
But there's also, so we wouldn't need to hold up this codification if it were just for the revisions of 89.7, because revisions to existing ordinances is exactly how this whole process is supposed to work. So we would just go through our revisions, finalize them, bring them to the board, and then submit them to the vendor. But you're saying that there are the chapter 16 that is in that code does not reflect even the current 89.7, not any proposed revisions or anything like that, but as of 8 to 10 years ago.
Right.
So if we can correct that, then we can still move forward with codification, because again, revision of ordinance is what this body does, and so it's not uncommon for them to be in process.
And again, I have no trouble with approving everything else, but 16, I just don't want 16 going out to the public and seeing the errors in it and having a problem with that. So if everything else is good, that'd be great. If it takes a motion to do that, that everything goes out at 16, so be it. We'll clean up 16. I'm not sure the best way to handle it.
I don't know how they can only do part of it and not all of it. I mean,
okay, maybe can they leave chapter 16 to be updated?
I have no idea.
I don't know either.
I haven't had the conversation with the vendor, Bob. I don't.
Right.
Can we do that? I don't know.
They might have
this was a complete package, so I don't know.
Or could they just flag the current language and say this is under active revision, so whatever presented here is
something so that it's not.
I don't know.
Either way, I feel like we're gonna now have to table this.
Yeah, I think so, because I would rather have the code finalized and fully adopted, and then I guess this sends a message to, after the 3rd review, that all department heads, you now have a 4th and 5th time to review this code again. I can provide the sheets for updates that I provided the last 3 times, so I'll send those out, and then hopefully we can catch any last ones with the full push, so. We've waited this long, I guess a few more months to get it right the first time.
My apologies for throwing the tailspin on this, but I think it's important.
So are we looking for a motion to postpone?
Make a motion to postpone.
Postpone, do we want to say till time certain or just till we're ready?
I'm certain.
Okay, so indefinite at this point, we'll bring it back when. Okay, so motion to postpone by Mr. Brewer, second by Mr. McKee. All those in favor of postponing this till we can bring it back with the proper corrections, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, that's what we'll do. We'll get it right.
I appreciate that.
All right, so, leave off here. Then we need to go to item number 27 on our agenda, resolution accepting donations to the Simons Recreation Complex.
This will be resolution number 24-76. Now therefore be resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that approval to accept the above donations from the Simons Foundation is granted. Be it further resolved that this resolution is effective upon passing publication. This is being offered to you by the Executive Finance Standing Committee on October 28 of 2024.
For the resolution, do we have a motion? Motion by Mr. Gill, second by Supervisor Glassbrenner. Any for discussion?
Yeah, just get a long agenda, so maybe much of your time here, but just want to thank the Simons Foundation. Their goal was to contribute around $50,000 a year to help make Simons a more sustainable facility. With this approval tonight, this will get them right at $50,000 for the year. We've also got some other things we're working on that might get in yet this year, or early next year. But this is a big statement from them, I guess, just in their support, our member support, and our donor support, that is helping to reduce the levy impact of Simons, but improve the facility for our residents as well. So thank you for your support.
Thank you. Any questions from the board on these donations?
Mr. Chair, same changes as the last one.
Yes, Mr. Frank as opposed to Mr. Williamson.
Frank and I.
Any other questions? If not, all those in favor of accepting these donations, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you to the foundation and thank you. Item 28, an ordinance prohibiting persons from engaging in obstreperous behavior with a motor vehicle.
This will be ordinance number 24-26, disorderly conduct with motor vehicle summary. As Chair Turk just noted the title of it there, I won't read the ordinance for you in its integrity, but the county may issue a citation for a disorderly conduct with a motor vehicle to an individual if he or she engages in the following behavior. You have your behavior listed there. The minimum and maximum penalty for this citation shall be consistent with the Richland County forfeiture penalty structure, and this is being offered to you by the Public Safety Standing Committee on October 4 of 2024.
The ordinance, do we have a motion? Motion by Mr. Manning, second by Mr. Cosgrove. Any quiz us on what obstreperous means? I had to ask before the meeting, so I did not know, but our council was able to locate that definition for us.
Noisy and difficult to control.
There we go. Mr. McKee?
It says motor vehicle.
Yes.
To me, that could mean a car or a truck.
There are specific definitions of motor vehicles in Wisconsin statutes that would rely on in determining whether or not something counts as a motor vehicle.
Other questions?
I can't imagine this ordinance hasn't been there. I swear I was ticketed under this ordinance.
So the city has an equivalent kind of called, what did I just say? Unnecessary display of power, or display of power. But DA Harper did bring these forward and indicated that they were a tool that she did not currently have. And so I asked that they be reviewed as a possibility.
Any other questions? Not all those in favor of the ordinance, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? adopted. Item 29, an ordinance prohibiting persons from acting contemptuously with respect to the circuit court.
Okay, this will be ordinance number 24-27. The county may issue a citation charging an individual with contempt of court if he or she engages in any of the following. So you have A through D listed there for behavior. And once again, the minimum and maximum penalty for this citation shall be consistent with the Richland County forfeiture penalty structure, and is again offered by the Public Safety Standing Committee on October 4, 2024.
Motion from Cosgrove to pass this ordinance, second from Supervisor Kramer. Any questions? Mr. Carroll.
Sounds great, but how in the world do we not already have this?
Well, I would assume there is like a felony contempt of court and things
There
like
is.
that, but this is an ordinance.
Yes. If you'll indulge me geeking out a minute. So what we have on the statute, there is contempt of court in the civil context. So I saw it a lot in family law. I had clients who would want me to go after the other parent because they did this or didn't do that, the other thing. And that is a civil action. There is criminal contempt of court. The most familiar people would be bail jumping. So you're released from jail on certain conditions, you violate that condition, that is contempt of a court order. You were ordered to do something by the court, you did it anyway, and you violated it. Our ordinances occupy a little niche in between the two. So there's purely civil matters, there's criminal matters, and then there's ordinance violations. Those are civil, but they parallel the criminal procedural track. So every other Tuesday, I sit on the city side, Amy sits on the county side, and we go through and we do all the speeding tickets and disorderly conduct tickets. When people talk about tickets, this is usually what they're talking about. So long as you pay the forfeiture prescribed by an ordinance, there is no possibility of imprisonment. That would be one of the major differences. You also don't get like a criminal record, although ordinance violations are tracked in CCAP. But that would be why this hadn't existed previously, is because basically exactly that. People assumed it did, and it found DA Harbor again indicated that it's a tool that she may wish to use that in negotiations rather than penalizing someone further, with the only option being a felony contempt, having this as an opportunity for them to make a financial forfeiture.
Similar tool, but different size.
Yep.
Okay. Other questions? None. All those in favor of adopting this ordinance, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The ordinance is adopted. Thank you. Item 30, a resolution approving the purchase and implementation of Microsoft Office 365.
This will be resolution number 24-77. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that approval is hereby granted for the purchase of Office 365 licensing from CDWG in the amount of $69,435.66. And implementation to be performed by Bose Allen at a cost not to exceed $42,625 for a total cost not to exceed $112,060.66. Be it further resolved that the funds to carry out this resolution shall come from the following sources: $66,000 from ARPA funds from Health and Human Services, and $46,060.66 from the remaining 2022 MIS CIP budget. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective upon its passing publication. It is being offered to you by the Executive Finance Standing Committee on October 8, 2024.
For the resolution, do we have a motion? Motion by Supervisor Hardwick, second by Mr. Brewer. Any discussion? We have Barb online, or she is? There she is. Hi, Barb.
Hey.
We gotta get you turned up here in the room, Barb, just a second. There we
Hear me
go.
now?
Yep.
Okay. So Office 365 is something we've been excited to do for a long time. It's going to get us a lot more tools in our toolbox and help with the security for the network of the county, because our email will now be hosted in the cloud. We're really excited about moving forward on this, and we have a good opportunity using some ARPA funds that are going to expire if we don't use them. So this is a great time to do this, and I'm hoping that we all have good support for this. It will also give all of you that have iPads the opportunity to put Excel, Word, and the Office suite onto your iPads.
I would also like to add that this will give every single county employee, with the exception of a very, very few, a county email address, which we do not have now and it has been problematic. So this is very exciting on that front as well.
We have any questions on this? Mr. McKee?
Is there an annual charge to that, or is it one upfront charge?
No, there is an annual expense that is about $69,000. We're working on a couple of different avenues to cover some of that licensing. A lot of the departments that have funding to reimburse, that is a reimbursable cost. So any of the state funding ones, those are reimbursable costs.
And it will have to then be a part of our ongoing budgeting to make sure these covered costs are covered. So, okay.
Yes.
Mr. Woodhouse?
Are there additional cost savings or assets to be sunsetted with this implementation?
At this time, there may be. It will take about 1.5 years to implement all of those. So I hate to say yes, because you're not going to realize those costs immediately. We had hoped for more than what we're seeing. And it's possible that we will, but some of the security, some of the encryption, and those types of things that we pay for separately, we're hoping not to have to pay. So there are some offsets.
Thank you.
Other questions? Not seeing any, so all in favor of this resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Resolution is adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to item number 31, a resolution relating to an already obtained Snowmobile Alliance grant accessible to counties for snowmobile bridge replacement.
This will be resolution number 24-78. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that approval is hereby granted to complete the project as defined and submit for reimbursement once all work is completed. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passage publication. This is being offered to you by the Public Works Standing Committee on October 3, 2024.
You've heard the resolution. We have a motion. Motion by Mr. Cosgrove, second by Mr. Frank. And discussion. Josh.
Fairly standard procedure as the snowmobile club says a bridge becomes obsolete. In this one's case, it was already designated to be replaced, and then with the heavy floods we had earlier this year, it completely devastated that bridge. They go out, we get bids for a new bridge. It's 100% paid for by the DNR. It's no cost to the county, but we have to facilitate the actual replacement of the bridge as the county for liaison to the snowmobile. Pretty cut and dry procedure.
Any questions? Questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? You have adopted that resolution. Thank you. Item 32, a resolution approving the Sheriff's Office to sell surplus firearms to current certified law enforcement staff of the office.
This will be resolution number 24-79. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that approval is hereby granted for the Sheriff's Office to sell surplus firearms to current members of the Sheriff's Office staff. Be it further resolved that the proceeds from the sale of surplus firearms shall be deposited into the Sheriff's new equipment line in order to help purchase replacement equipment. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passing publication, as being offered to you by the Public Safety Standing Committee on October 4, 2024.
You've heard the resolution. Do we have a motion? Motion by Cosgrove, second by Glassbrenner. I have a question on this. It says in the title to current certified law enforcement staff, but that's not in the body of the resolution language. It just says Sheriff's Office staff.
The intent is to be certified law enforcement officers. Yes.
Does it need to be changed? We need an amendment to make
Motion to amend
Okay, so we would need a motion to add that amendment. Motion by Mr. McKee, Second by Mr. Frank to amend it by clarifying that it is certified law enforcement staff we're talking about. Any further discussion on that amendment?
Is that only your office or not the guys over in the city?
No.
It'll be certified law
Only
enforcement staff of the
employees
sheriff's
of the sheriff's office, well, certified law enforcement officers of the sheriff's office.
Further discussion on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, so considering the resolution as amended, discussion. Mr. Carroll.
Are these obsolete? I mean, why are they surplus?
So I've been working on replacing them over the course of, it's been a little over a year now. So I've replaced a number of them, and so I've just been putting the old ones in the safe as I go along. I'm replacing them just because they're quite old. They're all over 20 years old now. But yeah, right now they're just taking up space in the safe, and I figured I could free up that space.
Mr. Manning.
Do you also have to go through a FFL or a licensed dealer to do this, or can you just sell it to an officer? How does that work?
So I can sell it to the officers. The plan as of right now is there's actually an ATF form that I can record the transaction on, and then we'll just maintain that as a record here. Okay.
Other questions? All those in favor of the resolution as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Resolution's adopted. Thank you. Item number 33, resolution approving the payment for a new canine and required training from donated funds.
This will be resolution number 24-80. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that approval is hereby granted for the Public Safety Standing Committee and the Sheriff to pay Von Leach Kennels, Inc. In the amount of $20,325. Be further resolved that the total cost of carrying out this resolution in the amount shall be paid from the Richland County Canine Fund. And be further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passing publication. This is being offered to you by the Public Safety Standing Committee on October 4, 2024.
You've heard the resolution. We have a motion. Motion by Supervisor Kramer, second by Supervisor Harwick. Any discussion? Getting a new canine.
We have a new canine.
We have a new
yes.
canine. We're paying for a new canine.
Yes, we're paying for the new canine. So actually, Canine Raven, so it's Sergeant Isaac Gerber and Canine Raven, they actually started patrolling last week. They just completed training, and their first shift together was last week. So they're actually on duty tonight. I'm guessing I probably can't get them up here by the amount of sirens I've been hearing, but they are on duty tonight, and they've been working for us for a week now. The funds are all donated funds. So when you look at the Richland County Canine Fund, it's built up, and basically the public pays for this, right? Well, they pay taxes, but this isn't tax money, this is all donation, so.
Mr. Gill.
How does the canine provide assistance? How does that help?
So both of our canines are what would be considered a dual purpose canine. So they're trained in apprehension, tracking apprehension, and drug location. So we can use them to look for people, whether it's people we want for arrest purposes, or it's just somebody who's lost. We can use them to search for people, we can use them to search for articles. Somebody lost their cell phone out in the field. We could actually use them to help locate stuff like that. Do you tie up a canine for something like that? Maybe not, but it is a possibility. And then locating drugs. Article searching, finding people, finding drugs. Yeah. Yep.
Sometimes at a traffic stop, they'll have the canine go around the vehicle and do a sniff, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Other questions? There are no other questions, then all in favor of the resolution, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Resolution is adopted. Item 34, resolution approving termination of current billing contract with EMSMC.
This will be resolution number 24-81. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that approval is hereby authorized for the termination of EMSMC ambulance contract. Be further resolved that this resolution shall be effective upon its passing publication. This resolution is being offered to you by the Executive and Finance Standing Committee at their September 10, 2024 meeting.
The resolution. And a motion, please. Motion by Mr. Gill, second by Mr. Manning. Who's got discussion on this?
I'll take it, as Mike is unfortunately not feeling well. So, as many of you know, the primary source of funding for the ambulance service is billing. It's billing for calls, it's getting those reimbursements for calls that they go on from insurances, Medicare, Medicaid, all of those varying things. In order to facilitate that billing and those collections, there is a contracted provider, because obviously our ambulance service staff does not have time to be doing it on their own. And so about a year ago, we switched providers because we were having issues with the current provider at that time falling behind, not keeping up with our reimbursements and our billings. And to this date, I don't think we've still seen all of the money from that biller. And so there was a contract approved to transition to EMSMC, which has been providing that service now since last year. Again, a couple of months ago, when Director Jessen came about, we were noticing some lapses in revenues and decreases, and that was alarming. And he dug in and he started making phone calls and realized that there had been a number of days where no billing had been done. They were not processing anything. It was sent to them, they weren't doing their job. And the other interesting piece with this company was that they also operate a collection agency. So how hard are they going to try to go out and get the funds that are owed to them when they can charge us more money and try to put them into collections? So he did work with some account specialists there. They apologized up and down, nope, we're gonna do better, we're gonna fix this, but really have not seen that increase in those revenues. Still a lot that is backdated in August. We did get a significant amount of those reimbursements in, which was encouraging, but again, it's still a struggle. And he did find another provider that offers a lot more benefit and has agreed to start providing services for us on January 1st with the same cost as we were paying for ESMC. So with that, and I know you probably have more questions than that I can't answer, but that's the gist of what has gone on. Attorney Wendell has been involved, so if you have any more technical questions, he may be able to answer those.
Any questions from the board? Yes, Mr.
Were multiple billing agencies contacted? Was this put out for bid? How did we land on this recommendation?
Mike researched it. He reached out to a number of different services. I can't recall how many off the top of my head, but this was not pursued lately. We did give EMSMC a chance to turn things around, and it was ultimately decided that any improvement was because of the increased scrutiny rather than any sustainable change in service. So I know that he spoke with a number of departments who were very positive about the new service that we're looking to engage with. And I think the defining characteristic of the new service is that it was founded by former EMTs. And so that there's like an inventory management system and everything that's involved. And presumably it's geared towards the people who do that in and out every day. So hopefully third time's the charm here. But you know, he was aware of the failings of the CV1, and then you know, saw firsthand the failings of EMSMC, and so I don't think he jumped into this new proposal willy-nilly either.
Sure. Thank you. Professor Kramer.
It says current billing contract. Do you know when that contract is done?
January.
19. Okay,
Yep.
so we will get analyzed.
No, no, we elected to pursue just notice of non-renewal
Okay,
rather than trying to terminate it.
thank you.
Mr. McKee?
What happens if they just have a bunch of buildings that they haven't processed? We go to the new company, does that get switched over to the new company?
They have said that they will go back and, they say audit or basically review all of those. You know, the hard part is, from what I understand, there are certain timings on certain bills. So once they're submitted, you only have so long to process and pay and all of that. And then after that, you really can't go after them for those dollars. But they're gonna go back through, they're gonna look at those things, and they're going to rebill, if you will, those items that they can. So, which is good, and they're gonna go back through and look at, I think, the past, there's a pretty significant period of time. I would wanna say a year, but I don't know that it's that long. They're gonna go back through and they're gonna look at it and try to see if there's any way that they can maximize those dollars to try to get payments for some of those things, which is also wonderful. And this service, as Mike said, it has a lot of other modules that go with it. There's a scheduling module, the inventory management module, so it's kind of an all-in-one. And all of that stuff comes at the same cost, which is also nice. You get way more for what you're paying. So I think that's another reason why he was pretty drawn to it, because it gives so many additional features.
I believe there was a comment that the service that we are looking to switch to is familiar with the process of taking on outlying bills from providers.
Correct. Yep.
So this is not the first time they've seen something like this.
Other questions? If there are no other questions, then all in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Resolution is adopted. Item 35, resolution approving an amendment to 7/2024 provider contracts for the Health and Human Services Department.
This will be resolution number 24-82. I will not list all of the contracts that need to be amended. You can see them all there on the resolution. I will start with be it further resolved, the Community Health Services Standing Committee is hereby authorized to amend any of the above contracts by not more than 15%. Be it further resolved, the Director of the Health and Human Services Department, Ms. Tricia Cummins, is hereby authorized to sign the above contracts on behalf of Richland County in accordance with the resolution. Be it further resolved, this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passing publication. And this is being offered to you by the county board members of the Community Health Services Standing Committee on October 3rd of 2024.
Resolution, do we have a motion? Motion by Supervisor Kramer, second by Supervisor Brewer. Any discussion? Tricia is here.
So these are 7 contracts that we're asking to make amendments on. 4 of them are through our comprehensive community services. 2 help provide our crisis service, and the last is Southwest Workforce Development Board, which we have leased employees, and so we added one through our CCS program, and that is why we have the increased cost.
Does anybody have questions on any of these?
I would just like to make a comment.
Yes, Mr. Brewer.
Over the years, we have labored and sweated and examined these kinds of requests to the point of meaningless dialogue. And it's good. Now I'm totally convinced we've got good transition here. We've got good transition in the board. So let's do county business efficiently.
Questions? No other questions then? All in favor of the resolution to make these amendments, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution is adopted.
Abstain.
One abstention. Supervisor Woodhouse. Item 36, a resolution approving the 2025-2027 Richland County Aging Plan.
This will be resolution number 24-83. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that the 2025 to 2027 Richland County Aging Plan, a copy of which is on file in the county clerk's office, is hereby approved. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passing publication, and is again being offered to you by the county board members of the Community Health Services Standing Committee on October 3rd of 2024.
the resolution. Do we have a motion? Motion by Supervisor Glassbrenner, second by Supervisor Williamson. Any discussion on this?
This is a plan that we need to do every 3 years for our aging programs. It just really is a plan that talks about how we serve people, who we serve, and different projects that we're going to do. It's pretty standard.
Anybody have any specific questions on the plan? If not, then all in favor of adopting it, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Plan's adopted. Item 37, a resolution relating to Richland County's participation in a state program providing specialized transportation assistance.
This will be resolution number 24-84. Now therefore be it resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that the Richland County Department of Health and Human Services and its director are hereby authorized to prepare and submit to the Wisconsin Department of Transportation an application for assistance during 2025 under Wisconsin Statute Section 85.21 in accordance with the requirements issued by the Department of Transportation. Be it further resolved that a sum of not less than $15,978 of the amount budgeted for transportation funds for the Department of Health and Human Services transportation account in 2025. Richland County budget shall be used as the 20% matching cost, county cost share portion of the program for specialized transportation assistance, which county contribution will enable Richland County to receive the $79,889 grant, which has been allocated to Richland County for 2025 by the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, again in accordance with Wisconsin Statute Section 85.21. Be it further resolved that the Director of the Department of Health and Human Services, Ms. Tricia Clements, is hereby authorized to execute a state aid contract with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation under Wisconsin Statutes 85.21 on behalf of Richland County. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passage and publication. This is once again offered to you by the county board members of the Community and Health Services Standing Committee on October 3rd of 2024.
That's the resolution. Motion by Supervisor Kramer, second by Supervisor Fleming.
This is a grant that we do on a yearly basis. This covers our volunteer driver program and our public transportation through our pass.
Something we do every year. Any questions on this? All those in favor of the resolution, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All right. Item 38, resolution approving the purchase of new network switches for Pine Valley Community Village.
This will be resolution number 24-85. Now therefore be resolved by the Richland County Board of Supervisors that approval is hereby granted for the purchase of new network switches for the Community Services Building. And be further resolved, I think that should say Pine Valley Community Village, not Community Services. And be it further resolved that the quote received from JCOM Technologies in the amount of $28,023.37 is accepted and the cost will be covered by Pine Valley Community Village Fund 61. Be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passage and publication. And this is being offered to you by the Executive and Finance Standing Committee on October 28th of 2024.
Thank you for the resolution. We have a motion. Motion by Mr. Gill, second by Mr. Cosgrove. And I think she's been sitting here for a long time.
So this is already put into our budget, we've already done it, and MIS will be doing our installation for it. So there won't be nothing on that.
All right. Anybody have questions?
The only change is that Williamson and Frank.
Yep.
Got it. Not that it matters. No.
Our standard Williamson Frank change.
Exactly.
Any other questions? Otherwise, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you very much. That brings us to item 39, appointments to various boards, committees, and commissions. Do we have any tonight? We have none tonight. Do we have any correspondence?
There was number 40 in your packet. It was a resolution resolution 24-2 from the town of Una Vista that Van Nelson Town Clerk shared, so I put that in the packet for you all to view.
Has that been referred to zoning?
I did not refer to zoning. I didn't know if it needed to be referred to zoning or if it was an FYI. I just put it in the packet because it was sent to all of us. So.
Well, if it's this bad, I think I'll just take it.
Okay. All right. The council will be working on that. Thank you. No other correspondence?
No other comments.
Future agenda items. Ms. Hendricks.
had a question when we were gonna do the new person for the missing, the baby on the board. I thought that was tonight, and then we would do.
No, that's for
November.
Yeah, that's for our November
On
meeting.
November's?
Yes.
The applications were due October 25th, and then presented at the next regular board meeting, which would be November 19th.
Okay, thanks.
So that will be a future agenda item.
Okay, thank you.
We do now, it's in our current rules, so, yep, we do now.
Consent board rules.
All right, if there are no other future agenda items, then we're looking for a motion to adjourn from Mr. Manning. Here's a second. Second from Supervisor Kramer. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, we are adjourned.